Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages,
prepare to be astonished.
Welcome to the Young Prophets podcast. My name is Justin Allen. I'm an associate of Global Awakening. I'm here at the Global Studios in Central Pennsylvania. I've got my man John Rolfe behind the scenes over here.
What's up, everybody?
Making this thing look pretty for you guys to enjoy. And I'm excited today because I've got some good friends of mine. As our special guest today, I have Corey and Katie Perkins coming to us from Redding, California. See, I just want to get dancing and singing and go into celebratory mode. Welcome, guys, to the broadcast. Thank you for being here. Excited to have you on today.
Hey, thanks for having us, Justin.
Yeah. What's up? Is it nice and hot and miserable in California right now?
It's unbelievably hot. Yeah. Actually, I can see smoke.
Smoke?
There's a fire.
Yeah, somewhere nearby.
There's a wildfire.
Oh, there's literally a wildfire. I feel bad now. No, it's not my fault.
It smells like a campfire from like the months of June, September, which is like kind of cool, but also just really not good.
Maybe not all the time. Awesome. Well, I will pray that it rains enough to put the fires out and then still be kind of warm and all of that. Well, it's exciting to have you on. I just want to give our viewers and the audience a little backstory. I met Corey when I came to Global Awakening. He's actually the reason I got hired. Was he suggested me for events admin or something like that. And as I was a student at BSSM, we're talking about. Wait, no, I've got them all backwards because I have BSSM, GSSM, GCSSM. Just for those of you who don't know, we're not overly creative in the charismatic arena. We just put everything really close together. So I was at Global School of Supernatural Ministry, and he invited me on to work on the team, and they said yes, and the rest is history. Now I get to live out my dreams that way, so it's his fault. But we became fast friends and realized we have a ton in common and just a little funny, weird stuff. Corey and I would regularly show up to the office wearing the same outfit from head to toe. It wasn't that uncommon. I'd never experienced that in my life. But now you know, brother from another mother, kind of have some of the same tendencies. And then he left me and abandoned me and went to Redding, California because of this woman right here. So she must be special. I love Katie as well. I'm so grateful to have you on as well. But Katie has been connected, part of the Bethel family, works with BSSM, and we'll get into all that stuff in a little bit. But I love these guys. They're brothers and sisters. They're family, and this is going to be fun today. But they're influencers, and they have creative ideas and approaches to the world around them. And part of this broadcast is that we want to talk about different endeavors and different approaches to advancing the kingdom on the earth that doesn't always look like the four walls of the church. So that being said, guys, I want to kind of like throw it to you. I'll just let Corey, you go first, and then Katie, but tell us a little bit about yourself, where you've come from, where you're at now, and what you're doing, just so the audience knows kind of what's up with you guys.
Yeah, sure. So as Justin said before, we met at Global Awakening, but I had been working there for, I don't know, maybe 5 years, 6 years, something like that before I met you. And so I graduated college and got hired actually at Global Awakening right out of college as a graphic designer. That's what I studied. That's what I studied in college. So, and then I worked at Global Awakening. I moved into planning events, and I did that for, I don't know, 6 or 7 years, I think. And before meeting this woman. Yeah. And so I met this woman at a Randy Clark healing school. I was running in Redding, California. And so I met her, and then it was all over. I packed up all my stuff, and I left you. And
literally, he did.
I moved out here.
I knew it was over when we came back.
Yeah.
I went home and told my wife, I was like, babe, he's leaving, and it sucks, but I think it's right. So it turned out to be right. So we forgive you. It's okay. We'll get you back this direction at some point or another. But
so I didn't know what I was going to do when I came out, or when I decided to leave. I just knew I wanted to come out and be with her. But I ended up getting hired and working for Heidi Baker's ministry, Iris Global. So now I do their events and a bunch of other stuff for them. So that's my story.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Katie, how about you? Give a little backstory for the people watching, listening.
Well, I moved to Reading in 2010.
Okay.
So I've been here for only 8 years, which is just crazy to me.
It's a little bit of history.
I know. It's wild. So I moved here from Nashville, Tennessee. So grew up in Nashville. My whole family is still there. I'm the youngest of 4. So the baby lives all the way across the country. So moved out here, but my whole fam is still there doing ministry. But I am in Reading. I did the School of Ministry out here. And then after that, I stuck around, and now I work for the second year of BSSM as the school administrator.
Okay, so you're the admin for BSSM on site. Very cool.
Yeah.
It's crazy when you start to pay attention to like revival culture and these major moves and hubs that you refer to. We're all interconnected and we're all family. So we're like at Global Awakening. That's how Corey and I met. And now he's with Iris Ministries, which is Heidi Baker, and also Will Hart and a ton of other people that came from here. And now we've got the merger with Katie, and we have close family too. So it's really a family that's affecting the world around us. The kingdom's a family, family's kingdom. So regardless of our streams, we're all one and the same. So that's exciting to hear, and it's fun now to see them going on to success. And then right now where you guys are at, we're just getting married just a little bit ago, not that long ago. You're freshly married, so there's all these new opportunities, and that's fun and exciting. Today, I kind of want to hit a few subjects. I want to talk about your philosophy for life. I want to talk about marriage a little bit. I know you're fresh in, but kind of like some things you've set up moving forward, kind of already having your where you're headed in life, kind of. So you kind of got your destiny and purpose established and merging at that point in your life when you already have things going. A lot of times people come together and like, we'll make this work together and figure it out. But you guys already have some of those major elements. And what does that merger look like? And a bunch of other things. Corey, I want to talk to you, and also you, Katie. Corey, you have a strong social media presence in the area of like Instagram and other people. And it's an avenue in which to influence people through creativity in the arts. I kind of want to pick your brain, and you as well, Katie, about that and social media and the arts and creativity. How to engage culture in a way that's not hokey, it's not cheesy, it's not outdated. How can we stay ahead of the curve and influence them, kind of prophetically speaking? And how do you view that? Because you're very intentional about it. I know you well. Like look, feel, appearance is very important to you, and it's part of the way you're made. But it causes you to be able to engage with culture on a higher level. So what are your thoughts on that and your approach and stuff?
Sure. Well, I mean, the whole Instagram thing, I got featured as a suggested user years ago. But that didn't just happen. Like, I was very intentional about I took photos and how I engaged with people on social media.
Yeah.
And so just kind of in that journey, it was just a goal that I had set personally, like, hey, I want to do this.
Yeah.
And I took like a year and just really was intentional about it. But I learned so much about social media and engaging with people on different platforms like that. And I think it really came out of a place of like, I mean, you know me, but I'm very much like, everything has to be done with excellence. Yeah. Like everything has to be done efficiently. Like this is a core value in my life. Like, yeah. if I do it, if it's not done really well and it's the best quality, then I don't have any interest in doing it. And I feel like God feels the same way, but that's just how I feel about it.
Yeah.
And so over the past couple of years, as we've seen it play out, at Global and Global Awakening and at Iris and at Bethel, I mean, people are on their phones all the time.
Yes.
They're on social media all the time. And so it's Instagram, it's Facebook, it's Twitter. That's what's in front of people the most. And you go to church on Sunday, even if you go to conferences, like what's in front of people most is social media.
Yeah.
And so I've kind of taken that. I've just recently taken over Iris Global social media, and we've made it a goal to post high quality stuff, and stuff that is engaging. Yeah. And because we know that's where we're headed.
That's awesome. No, that's super cool. And to Katie, I kind of want to hear your take on it too. I'm more familiar with Corey's just because I've spent a lot of time with him, but it's also kind of like a high core value from Bethel's standpoint too. And you guys have kind of been set the bar in a lot of ways for the global church in like expression of media, because, and I've talked to several creatives already, but like when you think of the church engaging in media, you cringe because it's generally horrible. Like whether it's movies, any type of visual illustration, it's always about 20 years behind. What are some of the core values that you've learned that you have on your own that kind of help you stay ahead of the curve and kind of set the standard rather than you're running behind trying to catch up with what culture's doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of it's what Corey was talking about, just like a heart for excellence across the board. So like, for example, even my Instagram account, like I hardly have, I mean, I pale in comparison to Corey's follower count, but like I'm really on top of like what the aesthetic looks like, like how am I presenting myself to people, not necessarily to stay relevant, but to stay excellent. Yeah. So I think that's a lot of Bethel's core value. It's like even if you don't have the spotlight, even if you don't have the attention, like is every part of what you're doing manufacturing excellence. That's so good. I think that's kind of probably one major aspect of how Bethel, I guess, across the board. I don't really do anything with media for them,
well, it's part of who you are.
How they maintain kind of on the forefront of creativity and developing new content and ideas and design. Okay. It's because everybody in every department has a core value for excellence, and that kind of spreads across from content to design to brand. The whole thing.
No, that's awesome. And two, like as far as kind of knowing your audience a little bit, because you know the people that follow you. Like people act like they don't pay attention to it, but everybody knows. You know who's going to like your post. You know who's going to share them, retweets, et cetera, et cetera. So have you? And I'm not going to talk entirely about social media, but I think this is actually relevant. People kind of want to know from people that actually have got impact in it, rather than just how hypothetically if I did have a good account or people followed me, what it would be like. But have you learned anything about your audience and engaging with them that, hey, for instance, when I started out, I thought I was going to appeal to this group of people, but actually this is like a niche group that I didn't know that I hit, and then by accident finding something out and then intentionally engaging them. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Have you found anything out from that? Like, were there any surprises along the way? Like people that, Corey, for you, is there anybody you didn't know was going to follow you that did start to follow you?
I don't know. I think it was, when I started, I wasn't intentional about appealing to a certain group of people. Mm-hmm. Like I think when in a ministry, it's different because there's a certain demographic, there's a certain people, there's a certain stream that you want to appeal to. But on my personal account, it's just like I'm going to do what I want to do. Yeah. And I'm not going to let whatever dictate that. Like, that's good. Whatever, who's going to like it and who's not going to like it, like that. That'll, if you're worried about that, your creativity is going to be stifled. But it's been more like, people, this kind of people or this group of people like what I'm doing. I just found out as like a collateral damage. Is like, I'm going to do whatever I want to do. I'm going to make sure I do it with excellence. Yeah. And I'm impacting this group of people.
Okay. No, that's great. We're not going to talk about this the entire time. I appreciate your take on that, and I think it's really cool. Keep doing what you're doing. I love it. I stalk you through Instagram, and I send you more direct messages through Instagram. I was telling somebody, if I send you memes through Instagram, it's because I love you. That's my love language. People may think it's a stalker-type personality, but it's actually just me.
Go monthly without talking to you, texting you.
Yeah.
I'll go a day without getting a DM from you.
Yeah, it's at least 5 a day, probably on average. I'm like at 5, I start to feel like maybe I've done this too much, but I don't care that much. So, little known fact about me. But anyways, moving on. So you're in this capacity where you work with events, and then Katie, you work with the school. You also both travel a little bit with your own respective ministries, and then together you guys have done some travel. How do you, with a busy schedule, with a lot going on, and being kind of on some of the front lines of global revival and the movers and the shakers, you're out there and you're doing a lot of stuff. How do you stay grounded and centered and focused and keep like you and God on the same page? Like what is your quiet time? What does your devotional look like? Because I think generation past was like, hey, we got to lock it into a set day and time and required amount of hours, or I'm not walking with the Lord. But I know, because I travel extensively, that that's not a realistic expectation. What does that look like for you personally, and like tapping into who you are and how God meets you in your own place? What is that for you, Katie?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it looks different in different seasons, obviously. Like, your relationships with people look different in different seasons. Sometimes you have more time to give, sometimes it's less. It just depends on the quality of connection you have when the time is less. So, like, right now, my schedule's a lot more lenient because the school year is September to May. So summers, I'm doing a lot of planning, but I also have a lot of like space and freedom to kind of work when I want to and not when I don't. So summers are a little bit easier for that, like, well, I'm going to spend X amount of time, reading the word, listening to podcasts, just spending time with the Lord. And then there are times in the school year where it's like just nonstop, and it can look as simple as getting in the car and like not first thing reaching to connect my phone to the Bluetooth and just sitting in silence and like not having any music going or anything that's like noise, and just taking that time in those moments to have like a quality connection, even if it's just 5 minutes.
That's really good.
So I think it's just a lot of that. Like, it's dependent on the season. And then there are times, I think, too, when you're really busy and it's going to be a sacrifice, but the Lord is still requiring, an X amount of time for you to be in that spot, like any relationship. Like, when we were dating, I'd be really busy, but I would sacrifice different things to make more time and not just grab a 5-minute coffee.
Yeah, no, that's good. You're the second person that I've spoken to that's, for instance, like your realm that you're in all the time is ministry and revival bent stuff. And people think, a lot of times they'll ask me like, well, what do you do? It's like, well, I like to decompress and not do anything spiritual. And not spiritual, I use quotation fingers there, but it's like, sometimes I just want to play with my kids and be with my wife. I don't want to read anything. I don't want to listen to anything. And we were speaking to a recording artist earlier, and we were asking him like, what kind of music's on your playlist when you work out? He said, I don't listen to music when I'm working out because that's my time to not have stuff in my head. He mixes and produces music, and he's like, that's when I listen to talk and I get my messages for, podcasts and stuff. And I was like, that's interesting, because people assume that because that's what we do, it's what we want to do all the time. Or people meet you at a conference and they want to tell you about the angels that have visited them in the night, and you're just like, I just want to like talk about something else, like, not that you don't care, but it's just like people say what they think you want to hear rather than what's in their heart. That's cool. What about you, Cor?
I think there's a balance, right? So we're both very administrative. I mean, she runs second year basically, and I am running events for Irish Global. Yep. So we're just naturally like very administrative. Mm-hmm. So, and we're always like we said earlier, like efficiency is key. It's so high on the priority. Yeah. Like when it comes to everything. And so I think in chasing that, and in doing these like conferences and doing the school, it's like we've filled our time more than our time with stuff to do. Yeah. And I think that the Lord really honors that. Mm-hmm. And I think that even if you have a couple months ago, I was kind of thinking about this same scenario, like, man, I'm swamped. I don't have time I haven't prayed. I haven't done like an hour in the morning where it's just me and the Lord, and a cup of coffee. And because I'm so slammed right now. And I just remember the Lord meeting me in that place and being like, 5 minutes is the same as an hour. Yeah. Like, my grace is sufficient. Yeah, yeah. Just 5 minutes to be an hour, And so he's like, just meet me. Yeah. Where you are. That's so good. And that can be as easy for me. It's like walking up a set of stairs, and I'm like, I'm swamped. I'm stressed. Everything around me is chaos. But I'm like, I'm going to give each one of these steps up the stairs to you. Yeah. No, that's super good. Yeah.
I love it. Well, it's crazy, and that kind of liberates people, because it's honestly, it's a religious way of thinking. It says, if I do this, then God will be pleased with me, and all of a sudden I've met the requirements of my relationship. But anybody who's married or been in any relationship knows that if you start trying to just check off a list, then love is not the primary motivator in your heart, and that's a problem. There were several moments when I started traveling and interning with Dr. Randy Clark that we would be traveling excessively, 16, 18-hour days.
Help me, Randy!
Oh, there he is. There.
Help me, Randy!
Help me, Randy.
Help me, Randy!
You weren't ready for that. But we would be 16, 18-hour days.
Anytime you say Randy, I'm going to fire off that clip through the whole interview.
Oh, for those of you who don't know, you need to know. We love Randy. We love to.
You and those words of knowledge, I don't even believe in them.
My God.
We've got a whole board. But yeah, it was just crazy and a lot of chaos, and it's amazing and it's wonderful, but you're like, I just need to sleep for a minute, and you're like, you can't even think about praying in those moments. And I would remember just, getting off a plane and going straight into 6 meetings a day, and then meetings after the meetings, and then it's 1 or 2 in the morning, and you're lagged out of your mind. And I lay down in my bed, and I would try to get Dear Lord out, and I'd wake up, and it'd be the next day again. And the Lord was just really, like you said, a day with the Lord is like 1,000 years. 1,000 years is like a day. It's outside of time and space. So if we can learn how to enter in any season, then we're good. It's just that abiding principle. It's super good. I love that. I want to talk a little bit about, you've done some humanitarian aid stuff, Corey, with wells and stuff. Tell the people a little bit about that. And you've done some pretty significant stuff, and kind of how you pulled it off and accomplished it, and where your heart is for that, because I love Global Awakening's fantastic, but we have less of a missional bend. We're more of equipping the saints and revival and awakening. And I found it not surprising that you ended up at Iris. That is definitely more bent there. I feel like we had some dreams about it, and there was some prophetic stuff that happened. But it's really cool to me to see you there, because it just seems like this really fits you well, and you seem to be thriving in that environment. So share with people a little bit about that.
Yeah. So a couple years into being at Global Awakening, like you said, it's definitely equipping of the saints. And that's the call, and that's what the ministry is doing. And I remember just approaching Randy and being like, "Listen, I want to do something humanitarian aid.
Yeah,
let's do something."
Mm-hmm.
And so it was my heart and my passion, and it had been burning in my heart for a while. As much as I love conferences and planning events and graphic design, my heart is really I want to help people at a core level, the base level, get my hands in the dirt and just help people.
Yeah.
And meet a need. And so they were like, yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. So we connected with some missionaries that we had in South Africa, and we planned to build a safe house in this rural area in Zimbabwe, bush, middle of nowhere. And so that was our first project. And that was such an impactful moment, in my life. It was wow, this is, I could do this the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And I think anyone would have said that if they were there. It's one of the most incredible experiences I've ever had.
Yeah. Larger than life.
Yeah. It was a witch doctor in the area was telling, guys with HIV, if they slept with a virgin, they'd be healed.
Oh, wow.
And so, so it was an awful scenario. We came in, and they've taken these girls and put them in jail cells because they want to get them away from their family. A lot of times it happens to their family. And so it's totally messed up. So we came in, and we're just what can we do?
Yeah.
And so we built a safe house where we put pastors in charge of the safe house. So the girls would come through there. They'd go through inner healing and just be in a safe place. And I just remember meeting one of the girls. Her name was Princess. And she was 7 years old when this happened to her. She contracted HIV, and it was it messed me up, man. Yeah. And but we prayed with all of them. We spent a lot of time just interacting with them and praying with them. Long story short, next year we came back and to visit the safe house, and the mama came running out of the house with a piece of paper in her hand, and she was screaming. And it was the doctor's note that she had gone back and she was HIV negative. And
what?
That absolutely destroyed.
That's
and I'm
so good.
I'll give my life for this, and and year after year we were doing well projects, just meeting a need. a community that didn't have clean water
Yeah.
now has clean water, and out of that they're able to plant crops and
Yeah.
become like self-sustaining. And it's just been, that was really incredible. And so I did that with Global Awakening for a few years, and then when I came to Iris, it was like, oh, this is what this entire organization is about.
Yeah. It's like that on
And if you
steroids.
think about it, it's just, it's the widows, the orphans, you know, the poor, tending to them in Africa and all over the world, third world countries. And so I'm doing a few well projects, but I'm not doing as many as I used to. But it doesn't matter to me. I could be sweeping the floor, and somehow still, if it helps this organization, I'm happy. I know that I'm affecting.
No, yeah, that's fantastic. I love two things you brought up is like, is that you went to meet physical needs and the supernatural invaded, you know, and there's kind of a culture that we've created around charismatic culture and revival and awakening groups where it's just like, yeah, the supernatural, everything. But if we don't meet people where they're at with their physical needs met, then we don't even have that connection point to be the hands and feet of Jesus. And, you know, we're told we'll do this, the same works as Jesus and greater. But Jesus wasn't just moving in the supernatural. He was actually ministering to natural needs. And that's really cool. And I love that radical testimony, but it was birthed out of an act of service. And then the well projects and stuff like that as well. Super cool. Katie, I know less about you just because we spent less time together, but I do know that being connected to the school in the way that you are, and from what I've seen, you got some preach in you, girl. Like I've heard some sound bites and stuff like that, and you're fiery. But it seems like you have a pastoral equipping type of thing on your life. I don't want to speak outside of your realm, but like that's very much there. And in like prophetically speaking, you have wisdom on your life that's not normal. So how does that assimilate? Like, what does your heart beat for? I kind of know Corey, and it's like creativity and social justice and humanitarian aid. But like, what does your heart beat for in your own right? Because one of the things we're doing is we interview these couples. I'm not like interviewing couples that are just like they're one person mushed together and it's like, yeah, they don't have their individuality anymore. I chose people who are like very distinct and have powerful calls in their life that are running together and they complement each other well. So who are you and what is in your heart to do? Like if you were to, you know, like tell somebody, this is what my heart burns for, what are those things?
Yeah, it's always a tough question for me because it's not really something I necessarily think about. If I'm honest, I'm like, I'm not, I remember in high school one time we had to like do some sort of like career project or something like that. And I was like, I remember as a teacher, I was like, can I just do a project more on the person I want to be than what I want to accomplish with my life? She said no. So I said, okay, fine. I'll put missionary because that feels like the closest thing to Christmas I can get away with.
Oh, I love it.
But no, I mean, I think for me, probably, I don't know. I mean, my biggest kind of like passion and motivator is to see people encounter God. So whether that's, you know, through me speaking or through me like making a spreadsheet that makes space for somebody somewhere to be in a room to have an encounter with the Lord. I'm all about that. So
that's amazing.
I think a lot of it comes out in service. If I'm honest, kind of in the season that I'm in, it's like I'm serving, you know, Bethel and the school and all that. But at a deeper level, I'm like, no, I'm serving the community and I'm serving students that have paid a big price to see if God will show up for them. So I think probably for me, what I'm most about is just like, I don't know, being around and being president. Being president.
No, I mean, like that's no, I mean, and it just like it you glow and you like exude that from your person. Like you have a pastoral shepherding, like discipling, like, and when you said, I just want to be like, I want it to be more about the person that I am. I want to speak to this just really quickly. There is this thing that we say, and it sounds like really spiritual, and people will shout you down, but we talk about a nameless, faceless generation, but God has always historically used people with faces and names, and he's not even remotely intimidated by them. So the fact that you're okay with who you are, leaders need to be comfortable and aware of where they're at. They don't need to be prideful and boastful, but a confident leader, like people want to get behind them, and it inspires people because it sets the bar high and it says, wow, that's a testimony of like, if Christ did it for them, he can do it for me. And I love to kind of see the church coming into the fullness of her identity and realizing, hey, I don't have to have this false humility on my life. Like, I think it's really cool. What you said on accident is actually a very powerful statement about your life. Every person that I've met that knows you speaks like so highly of you. It's ridiculous. And that's a great testament. It's one thing for somebody to say, I do this and I do that, and they give me their highlight reel, but it's another thing for me to get knocked over with people. Oh, what do you know about Katie Dobbins or Katie Perkins now? But, and like, you just like, all right, I've heard enough. Like, she's amazing. I get it. She's, so that's good. And, uh-oh. Do you hear that as well?
Okay, it's that time in the show. Get my mic up here.
There we go.
It's that time in the show where we ask our guests deeply thought-provoking, philosophical, religious questions. Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. All right, Corey, I'm going to fire the first question off to you. What in ministry, give me your most embarrassing ministry moment ever.
Yes.
Wow. I don't want to talk about it.
Oh.
It's so
Uh-oh.
embarrassing. What moment? It's actually, I have PTSD from it. Thanks for bringing this up.
We know a guy.
We
know a guy.
I agree.
My first ever Randy Clark healing school at Bethel. This was years ago. I don't know, like 2011 maybe. And like I had emceed a few events. There were like maybe 200 people, you know, and I'm in this arena of like 1,500 plus. And I'm sweating bullets, right? And I'm like, please just don't mess this up. And I remember the first thing I did was a transition from worship to introing Bill Johnson.
Nice.
And
No pressure.
I was literally just shaking the anyway, like there's footage of this. Like you could go find it.
Okay, I'm going to dig it out.
And anyway, and this made the VODs too, so this is how embarrassing this is. So I intro Bill, whatever, it's terrible, you know. And he comes up and he gives me a hug, and I'm just like, oh, I made it. Like, I did it. It's over. And I'm walking away, and I just walk away thinking, it wasn't terrible. Like, I did it. But as I'm walking away, I found out later, like from watching it, Bill like turns to me. He's like, how much time do I have? And I'm just walking away. Like, it's in his mic, so everybody in the place can hear it. And I'm just like, oh, thank God that's over. And he's like, how much time do I have? How much time do I have? He's like, oh, okay. And then he starts.
Oh,
And
God.
I'm like,
Okay.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's a
like
good one.
that.
That's a good one. Okay, next question. This is for you, Katie. Who's the most famous person that you've ever met?
Here's the thing. I feel like I've met a lot of Christian famous people, but that's not real. It's not actually famous.
That's not real.
Yeah, that's fake famous.
Christian fame is not real. That's a tweet that right now.
I wish I had somebody really good.
Okay, what about you, Corey? Most famous?
most famous. I don't know. I'm in the same boat. I've seen people, but they're mostly Christian people. I met Jim Kelly. Actually, we're kind of good friends.
All right.
So.
Okay. Corey, what was your favorite band in high school?
Okay.
Oh, in high school?
In high school.
Wow.
Yeah. What were you into?
All right. So here's the thing about that, right? Like I was somewhere in like middle school / high school. I went from like punk rocker to like exclusively rap.
Right.
Yeah. I think we all did.
And so, yeah, I think that it was like My Chemical Romance to G. Just awful.
Nice.
Awful.
Okay, Katie, if we were to open your Spotify right now, what is the last song that you listened to?
Oh God.
Or album.
Probably something embarrassing.
Well, that's the point.
That's
the
point.
idea. We want you to cringe.
Let me see.
Let's just open your phone, open Spotify, and show the screen.
Oh, I can't. Okay, no, it's like worship music. That's not fun.
Saved by the Lord.
That's all right.
Christian fame is not real and worship is not fun, just for the record, guys.
I listen to worship music. I'm so sorry. There are
Cor-
a lot of weird playlists. I just will pick random playlists. So
I've been listening to Pusha T's diss track.
Pusha T. A little bit of controversy there with Pusha T and Drake, right? I'm not sure what's going on. We'll leave that alone.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll leave that alone.
Here, let me, all right, next question. Let's see. Let me find a good one here. Corey, what is the dumbest way that you've ever been injured?
There are so many to choose from.
The dumbest way. I like the word.
There's so many. The most recent one, this past Thanksgiving, I went and played in Bethel's Turkey Bowl. Flag football. And I even said before I went, I'm like, I'm going to pull a hamstring 100%. Like, that's 100% going to happen.
Yeah.
And I went out and I was on the field for like 5 minutes and I pulled my hamstring.
Yep.
So that's the most recent. There's so many though.
Yeah. Okay, Katie, what was cool when you were young but isn't cool anymore?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm the worst. I'm just the worst at this game. Cool when I was young.
Coldplay.
No. Oh,
Nickelback.
Girl.
We need a Nickelback soundbite really badly.
Yes.
yeah. No, Coldplay was cool when I was in high school, and I refused to listen to it
She hates
because
them.
All right.
I was too cool for that.
Too
Okay.
cool. Okay.
All right, that works.
All right.
Okay, Corey, one more for you. Let's see. What movie quotes do you use on a regular basis?
All of
Your
them.
favorite movie quotes?
There's a lot, right? So there's obviously like all of the Will Ferrell movies I quote on the regular.
Yeah.
But I think the most interesting one that I quote is "It's a Wonderful Life."
Yes.
Really?
He does.
What's the quote? Which quote?
I mean, there's so many.
Put him on the spot.
I
now.
just ran stuff in like old timey voices.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
Mary.
Yeah.
How many clams can I get for selling my blood? I've got a whole trench coat covered in and stuff right here.
Okay, last question. I'm going to give this to each of you. Katie, you can go first. If you were forced to change your name, what would your new name be?
Every time when I was little, I would always pick Amy.
Amy.
Just a short and sweet.
Yeah.
That's
But now, I don't know. I probably pick something that's like really difficult to say just to make people work for it
I like that.
Yeah.
every time.
Every time.
Corey?
Every single time.
Hey, Ron.
All right, Corey, what about you?
Yeah. If I could change my name, like first and last.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Jay-Z.
No.
I'll change mine to Beyonce.
Yeah. Let's not do that.
How about new?
When I was younger, I wanted to be Jason so bad.
Jason?
Jason. I wanted to be Jason
So
too.
happy that I wasn't legally allowed to change that.
Turd Ferguson.
Yeah, that's right. Jared Ferguson. It's a funny name.
Speaking about changing names, we just got married.
Yeah, true. Yeah, you did change your name. There you go.
Changed our names.
Yeah, he took Dobbins.
Yeah.
Yes.
The Dobb days are just beginning.
Yep.
Will Hart, he married, right?
Yeah.
And so we did the ceremony, we did the deal. He filled out the paperwork, sent it. And like last week, we got our marriage certificate back. It says Katie Dobbins, married
Nice.
to Perkins.
Nice.
And as the officiant, it says William Hunt.
Okay.
So something William Hunt, that's, I don't know if it's legal or valid.
Will did it,
Go
so
with
you
it.
never know.
Yeah.
No, that's
Will.
awesome.
Oh man, Will. I miss Will.
Yeah, it's Will Hart, just for the record, those of you who are watching and wondering. Yes, Will Hart actually officiated a wedding, and it was theirs. So
my favorite story about Will that he ever told was something about like his inspection sticker when he lived when he lived in Massachusetts, right? So they had like lots of leaves like in the fall, and his inspection sticker was out, and he would hot glue leaves on the outside of his windshield to cover up that his sticker was out of date.
True story.
Genius.
True story.
Genius.
Yeah, these are not necessarily the views of Global Awakening or its associates, but it is hilarious that happened.
Okay.
Oh, Will Hart.
Okay, so that's our questions of the
There
day.
you
Thanks
go.
for playing,
Good
guys.
job. Thank you for being good
All right,
sports.
back to you, Justin.
Oh, man, we're shifting gears back into being overly spiritual again. Thanks for being good sports. That's fun. We like to lighten it up a little bit. So some other things I want to hit really quickly, not necessarily really quickly, but I want to kind of pick your brain on, is the merger of culture and its influence in church and stuff like that. There used to be this idea that you either minister in church or you minister out in the world. Those walls seem to be coming down. So the idea of ministering in unorthodox scenarios seems to be working. The idea of going into government, going into media, entertainment, Hollywood, the arts, music, et cetera, is an option. What are you guys' thoughts on intentionally like infiltrating is maybe not a good word, but influencing culture as a believer, as a kingdom-minded individual? And how do you take what you got inside of you, the kingdom inside of you, Christ in you, the hope of glory, into those arenas in a non just cheesy and like trying to make people your project kind of way? Does that make sense? Like a lot of times people are like, let's impact the culture around us, and it's like, we shouldn't ever do it that way. That's horrible. People can smell it coming a mile away. How can you do it authentically, and how do you kind of identify what this is my people group or this is my niche group of people that I kind of have an influence in?
I think it has to be organic.
Okay.
And what I mean is like, if you are not involved in certain areas of culture or don't have any experience or knowledge, what do you?
What?
Oh my God, I need to pull it together. When you said organic, I was like, it's an old wooden ship.
Well, I could be wrong, but I believe diversity is an old wooden ship that was used during the Civil War era.
I couldn't stop it in my mind. It just kept rolling. Oh, I'm sorry. We hung out too much before. This is hard. Okay. All right. I'm sorry for ruining that twice.
Help me, Randy! Help me, Randy!
That's the best soundbite that you have.
I've ruined it. I'm sorry.
greatest.
I didn't.
That's the whole thing, man. So violent.
Help me, Randy!
We didn't.
Help me, Randy! Help me, Randy!
Oh,
Okay, all right, continue.
Leaving
I'm
4
good.
sound guys at every venue.
Yes.
It's just bleeding.
Yeah. I am so sorry. I won't do that again. It struck me.
You're good. You're good.
Yeah. Go for it.
Yeah, I think it just has to be organic. I mean, I wouldn't expect to go into an arena that I have no experience in or even really care about, or I'm not submerged in and try to make an impact, I think that people that try to make it their mission that aren't really aware of what's happening, I think that's when it becomes like, oh, obviously you don't really care about us, you don't know what we're doing, you're not with us on this, you're just trying to push your own agenda and convert us or whatever. And so I think like stuff with current culture, like you just, if you're aware of it and you like pop culture or something, then you're going to have a much more impactful time speaking to people who are in that arena than if you are just clueless about it, if that makes sense.
No, you invest yourself in it, so obviously you have stock in it. How about you, Katie? What do you think?
I think like genuine compassion for people. So whether, because I'm like, I feel super called to like go to Hollywood and influence like the influencers. I'm like, awesome. I mean, if that were to happen, I'm down for it. I'm more likely to encounter somebody at a restaurant than I am a celebrity,
Yeah, I know.
which I is equally as impactful, bringing the church outside of the four walls as like influencing people, quote unquote.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's more about, genuine compassion for people as a whole.
Yeah.
And I'm like, everybody has a story. Everybody has something to say and needs somebody to listen. So, I think a lot of times that's how you make people not feel like you have an agenda. If you just come into it without an agenda and actually just come with a compassion for people and a heart to hear them where they're at. Because then, anybody on earth, if you ask them, a question about themselves or how are you doing, and it's genuine, for the most part, unless they've been super hurt by people, they're going to have a genuine response back to you.
Yeah.
So, like, I think just as a base level, like having real, honest connection with people, and within that, like if you love God, like eventually people will know whether or not you shout it from the rooftops. If you love people, like should be a pretty good indicator. That you know God and you love God. So I think that's just a big one. And then for me, if you're actually trying to influence people, whether that's in different like arenas of influencers or even in your workplace, like I think it's that same genuine compassion for people, but also just like building relationship and not having an agenda for them to have a certain kind of experience within a time frame. Like it might take 6 weeks or 6 months or 6 years or 10 years, but eventually if you're consistent and you're genuine with your response to people and how you pursue them,
that's really good.
Next step.
I like that you're like just authentic, and two, people don't know what to do when you don't have an ulterior motive, when you just want to speak to them or have a conversation. So when I speak, because too, like when we say these words, they can become buzzwords and we can be disconnected from the heart behind them. But when you speak about influencing culture, every society has a culture. So like there's a culture within media, there's a culture within entertainment, there's a culture in your local town, so like you generally gravitate towards what you are. So I love that when you were talking, it's no less of it's not a lower level of influence in culture just because you're doing it in your local city or township or whatever. It just means that you're aware of your realm of influence and your metron, your sphere that God's given you, and you're owning it to the best of its ability. So that's super cool. And just not trying to be cheesy. If you genuinely love people, and even if you are cheesy, and even if you are, like the older I get, the more I get to be like a dad, and I tell dad jokes, and I know it's not funny, but it's me at this point in my life, and I just have given up on trying to be overly cool. And if I stumble into it sometimes, most of the times I'm just cheesy and I know it. But like one thing that bugs me, and like don't get condemned if you're watching this and this is like your whole foundation for ministry, but I'm like tattooed and like I have sleeves on my arms, you have tattoos, and like things like tattoo interpretation is like, that's fantastic if you love that community and you're going after them. But I can tell you from experience, if you go to a tattoo convention and you start doing that stuff, you're going to be escorted out very quickly because you don't know anything about the culture for the most part. It may be an avenue and it may be a starting point. But like, why do you have tattoos? And it's just like you make somebody a project and you try to turn, part of who they are into like a means to an end. And people don't appreciate that for the most part. I mean, it has its, I'm not trying to like wipe out an entire area of ministry, but it's like that for me. It's like when people come up to me when I get through ministering, they're like, did you get those before you knew the Lord or after you knew the Lord? It's like every single one of them was afterwards, guys. I know that doesn't fit inside your box, but it's actually pretty normal. And you turn into somebody's project. Nobody wants to be a project. That's super cool. We're kind of getting close to the end of our time here, and I love to ask some questions here at the end. And these questions, we always do this because it's a prophetic broadcast in nature. You may think this is a weird format this is not what I looked at the prophetic like. The basic for the prophetic is that you either foretell or you forthtell. So you look in the future information, you can see it. And then forthtelling is calling those things that aren't as though they are so they can be so. God oftentimes uses prophetic people, and prophetic people are creative, and they're people that see things in their mind's eye. So using that ability to look into what God is telling you in your heart or in your spirit or whatever, and agreeing with it and changing your language. What is the Lord saying to you guys? What has he been speaking to you about? And how are you intentionally positioning yourself for the next 5 to 10 years? What do you see, not necessarily just in the church or ministry, but how do you see things shaping up? Like, what is God saying to you? And we always like convey that, it may be foretelling or forthtelling. We're decreeing the word of the Lord, but it's done through edification, which is encouragement, exhortation, rallying people around a point, or encouragement, which is comforting them if they're going through a rough time. And that's just for you watching. That's the idea between young prophets. They may not be behind a pulpit. They may be doing other things or look differently than you've seen before. So what's the Lord saying to you guys? Whoever wants it can take it first.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a big one, right?
Yeah, I know. It's the doozy.
Yeah. So I mean, in the areas of ministry, in the areas of culture, like, there's a lot that's happening right now. Whether it's politics or even the digital world, right? So we're seeing like virtual reality become this huge thing, and even like Twitch and like the e-streaming stuff that's happening, which is blowing people's minds. Like, no one could have foresaw, like I didn't, like, that e-gaming, like it's gonna be, they're going to be paid like they're playing professional football. And so this is happening. And the same with VR, like it's advancing so quickly, which is incredible. Like, it's incredible to see technology advancing like that, but also it's kind of scary because as you see this happen, you don't have to leave your house anymore for, like, you get an Amazon drone delivery of like your groceries, and you can be with your VR headset on and be on Mount Everest, with all your digital buddies. And so, it's kind of scary in that, like, people are hard to reach now, with their heads buried in their phones. And if we're not aware of like the changing atmosphere, like in that realm, I think the church has to be aware of that. And like we were talking about, like, not just know about it, but like be in it to be able to influence those people. It's scary that our kids, are gonna. It's amazing, right, that they get to grow up with all this technology, and I am all about it. Like, I want to be our set, like, than anybody. But you're seeing like young kids like close themselves off to like community, people, like interacting with people, and so it's, I think, just being aware of that and knowing how to like not get left behind in that, and know how to keep up with that, so we can have a voice in that arena.
I definitely see what you're saying, and that's something we've had the conversation several times recently. We're talking about Twitch, we're talking about the gaming industry, we're talking about this social network, for lack of better words, that it's a global community of people that are fully living in a different world. And to be really honest, I don't think the church even has a grid for how to interject in there, but I do believe that God is raising up people that will be prophetic voices, apostolic voices in that community. In the same way we had to figure out how to navigate Facebook, Twitter, the social media scene is relatively new, but God has raised up people for that time and that season. I think that we should be praying for those, or praying that God gives us insight, or if it's not our wheelhouse, that we learn how to be proficient in it enough to communicate with people. But that's really good. I love that. How about you, Katie? What do you think?
These are the questions that I love when people ask me, but I also secretly hate it. I'm like, oh crap. I should have a way to answer. But I think mostly what I've been feeling, and kind of seeing, even in our environment here in Reading, like, there's been like an unusual heightened kind of awareness of streams connecting. So like different, streams of Christianity overlapping and finding connection with, different denominations and speakers and worship styles, just for the church in America and abroad to have more of an overlapping experience instead of being divided by denomination lines or any of that. So I feel like that's going to be a big piece of the next movement of what God's doing.
Come on.
Are going to be kind of an understanding and an overlapping of different streams of Christianity. And then also I think, I mean, partially I say this because I'm Black, but I think there's obviously a lot of movement and momentum on race relations in America right now. And I think that the Lord is like strategically raising up people of color, minorities in America, specifically women, to be a voice for the men that don't have a voice or have felt like they couldn't have a voice, and then also other women. But I feel like that's a big piece of how we're going to take the next step in racial reconciliation are actually going to be female voices that are rising up.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Those are two on the top of my list. Is right now, racial reconciliation and women's rights are obviously taking the main stage. But I genuinely believe that God is in what's happening. There is a radical momentum on it, and I love that you even like the merger that you took of as you know, like women of color stepping up into places that men of color haven't actually been able to speak into. And I think there's something holy on that. And also what you were speaking about, Corey, that's fantastic. And I'm really excited to explore these. It's been great to have you guys on the podcast. Thank you for joining me. I've had a lot of fun. It was good to see you guys hang out and go through the processes. In the link in the bio below, we'll show you some ways to get connected with Iris, BSSM, their Instagram stories. You should go follow them, see what's going on in their life. It's been an honor and a privilege to hang out with you guys. Thank you so much. And if you like what you saw on the broadcast, guys, you should subscribe to us, pay attention to what we have coming up in the future. And we'll see you next time, but we're out. See you later.